Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another Mattel Jurassic World release, another Epic Attack release, as we have the Crash in Attack Ford Explorer and Velociraptor set. This one is another one of those sets that are a little bit tricky to find here in the United States, and I kind of just got tired of waiting for it to show up and wondering whether or not it actually will, because sometimes we just don't get things here. So I went ahead and had my good friend Rod's Random Work pick this set up for me from Japan, and he was awesome enough to help me out to acquire it and send it my way. So super psyched to actually have this set now here in my collection, and it's the first time that we've had the Epic Attack Velociraptor as far as the original Jurassic Park Velociraptor goes. And of course you can see that gorgeous Jurassic Park Ford Explorer over here as well. So it looks really cool. Yet again, definitely something I am really happy to now have in my collection after spending quite a few months kind of searching for it. So let's jump to that closer look at both of these right now. So if we actually begin with the Ford Explorer itself, you can see it looks really quite nice. You've got, of course, the gorgeous Jurassic Park logo right there on the hood. You've got the really nice greenish tone with those red stripes. Again, classic Jurassic Park Ford Explorer colors. As you move through, you can see it looks pretty similar to the already released version of the Ford Explorer from Mattel that we saw in the Tyrannosaurus Rex Escape Pack. However, it is a little bit different, and unfortunately I never actually opened my Tyrannosaurus Escape Pack, so my Ford Explorer actually still sits in the box, so I can't really compare it with this one to show you guys the differences. But I can tell you again, just like right around the windows, you can see more red here, whereas the red kind of like transitioned with greens and stuff on the original version of the Explorer from Mattel. So this one is a bit different. And of course, that's not the only difference that you'll see as you move along. One thing you might be able to take notice to straight away is the fact that we don't have any windows here on the side of the figure. You can see we've got the window here, the windshield, and you can also see we've got the sunroof, which apparently has some scratches. I'm not sure how that happened. I guess maybe from being in store. But you can also see as we turn here to the back of the Explorer, you can see the Explorer name right there. You can also see the Ford symbol over here to the right, as well as the license plate right there that my camera's not focusing on very well. There we go. But as you move back up, again, you can see we don't have the window here on the back. And then if we turn it around, you can see the same thing over here. But you can also see again, overall, it looks pretty reminiscent to the first version of the Ford Explorer released, but a little bit different again as far as the paint apps go, and the general appearance is a little bit different. And that's of course because we have a bit of an action feature with this particular version of the Ford Explorer that we will get to here in a moment, you know, when we get a closer look. You do have a little bit of articulation because you can actually, if I can get a hold of it, pop the top of the, you know, the sunroof open. You can open that up here on this version, but that's not the only thing that we have going on with this again, which we will get to here in a moment. But overall, this version of the Ford Explorer is absolutely beautiful, and definitely, again, another really cool addition to the Mattel Jurassic Park series. Not exactly as nice as the first one, but it has a pretty fun action feature that I think makes up for it. And then we've got the Velociraptor, and the Velociraptor isn't too far off from the JP3 version that we had, but of course we do have more of a Jurassic Park look for it, more of a classic Jurassic Park look. And you can see sculpt and detail wise, of course, it looks great here in the face. Very nice, very impressive fine detail. You can see we've got a darker variation of brown there around the eye, just giving us a little extra color variation for our raptor. You can also see we have a lighter tone here for the lower jaw. Unfortunately, that lighter tone does not run down into the underside at all. It's just gone after you leave that lower jaw. You have a nice green eye, but unfortunately the pupil, rather than being a black, is actually that dark brown that we kind of see there around the eyes. So a little bit of a downside as far as that goes. But, you know, as you run through, you can see it's a pretty nice looking version of a Velociraptor from Mattel. You have this, you know, like primary variation of brown moving through, but as you lead down here into the body, you do begin to pick up on a darker brown here that kind of runs along the back, and you only see it briefly here. It ends before we reach the tail, so you only have this little area of it here in the back, but I think it looks pretty nice, very smooth as far as the application of that brown goes. You can see it actually transitions very nicely there back to the lighter variation of brown that we have for the primary body color. You've got some nicely sculpted arms, nice muscle definition within the arms. Again, those classic Mattel Raptor hands that you usually see on your Mattel Velociraptors. We have the injury area here, which we will try out here, of course, in a little bit. There is definitely a speckling that I'm seeing on the figure as well, similar to what we had seen on the other Epic Attack figures I had taken a look at recently. And then, of course, you've got the legs and everything sculpted nicely, nice muscle definition moving down through. No variation of color outside of the regular brown, and then, of course, the speckling showing up there in the legs. You can see the nails are sculpted, but don't have any type of nail paint at all. You can see more of the speckles down here, maybe a slight satin shine for the nails, but it's very slight if at all. And then we move up into the tail, and the tail has a little bit of a curve to it, but the tail is very short, just like we had seen on the Jurassic Park 3 version, as well as, we had seen on the Dilophosaurus. Pretty short as far as the tail goes. Not terrible, but definitely a little shorter than I would like. And then as you move back up here into the body, you can see the leg is leading on this side, whereas the opposing leg is trailing. But outside of that, I don't think you're going to see much difference, because the figure overall is kind of straightforward and almost a stagnant pose. You can see the area here on the side of the stomach, which is kind of torn open like an injury. And you can see, again, the inside of the raptor. You can see, though, that we have an articulated jaw. You've got a nice pinkish tone there for the inside of the mouth, as well as the teeth sculpted out and painted very nicely. No coloration on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, but you do have it here on the lower side. And it also sports a nice kind of gloss coat to it, which is a very nice touch. So it's definitely not the best Epic Attack figure that we've seen so far, if you ask me, but it is a pretty nice one. As far as the articulation goes on our Raptor, again, you already saw the articulated jaw, which works pretty nicely. You also have the articulation in the arms, like you would expect. The articulation in the legs, which is really stiff moving forward, actually. Wow, stiff in general. The legs are pretty stiff. And then the swivel tail for the Raptor. We also do have the fax app code if you would like to add this figure to your collection. There you go, give you a chance to kind of scan that and get it into your collection. But on top of that, if we actually dim the lights, we can check out the action feature and sounds for the Raptor. So they're definitely pretty nice, pretty much like you usually see when it comes to the Epic Attack Velociraptor. Also, I don't feel like we really need to do much in the way of, size comparisons or anything like that, because you can see here, if we bring in the JP3 version of the Epic Attack Velociraptor, they are pretty much the exact same size. And I would say, sculpt-wise, they might be the same, well, I knocked it over, but the same or very similar at the very least. You can see the tails kind of curve in the same direction. The legs are positioned the same way. The arms look pretty much the same. I will say that I do notice a little bit of difference on the figure as a whole. The injury is shaped a little differently on this one. The positioning of the back and the way that the JP3 version has kind of like a wavy back is not the same as this. So I would say that the torso and head are different on this one, but of course, and different on this one compared to that one, but everything else would be the same. I think it's the same legs, same arms, same tail for the most part, outside of just the torso and the head. So if you do already have the JP3 version, or you've seen it at the very least, which again, they're everywhere at every Walmart I seem to go to anymore, you should have a pretty good idea of the size of this Raptor. And the same can probably be said for the Ford Explorer, because the original Ford Explorer has been out for quite some time, so I don't think we really need to do comparisons or anything with this compared to, again, anything else, because we already would know roughly what the size of the Ford Explorer would be as well. I really wish at this point that I kind of had opened my T-Rex Escape Pack so I could compare the two Ford Explorers with each other, just to show you the slight difference in paint apps, but I'll just put this one, right here, and then bring up this image here of that particular version of the Ford Explorer, where you can see, again, a little difference between the two when it comes to the coloration and paint apps on the first version of the Ford Explorer compared to this newest version. So again, my pack isn't actually open, so it's still in the box. Can't really bring it in here and use it to compare, but you can see again a little difference. But as far as the actual action feature of this goes, you can see if you get your Raptor up here and he kind of jumps on the Ford Explorer, he crushes it down, and you can see once you actually do that, now the Raptor fell, once you actually do that, you can see how the entire upper side just kind of collapses into the vehicle, and you also open up the hood. Again, you pop the hood open, and you can see that there's a perfect line there that allows it to kind of crack open, and you can see the inside under the hood of the Ford Explorer now. So it's a pretty darn cool action feature, again, and all you've got to do is just pull that up, and it pops right back into place again. I have that window open, or the sunroof, I mean. And again, if you just want to break it, all you've got to do, push that down, it all kind of crushes in and pops open. And like I said, you just pop back up and right back to perfect again. So it is a pretty darn neat action feature. I am actually a pretty big fan of that, and the fact that we have a different variant now of the Ford Explorer is really quite cool. So this Mattel Jurassic World, or in this case I should technically say Jurassic Park, because we've got a Jurassic Park Raptor and Jurassic Park Ford Explorer, but it is labeled as Jurassic World Epic Attack, Crash and Attack Ford Explorer and Velociraptor set is really cool. And honestly, again, I am a big fan of these Epic Attack figures. At first I started out kind of being a little iffy on them, and I'm still not a massive fan of the Dilophosaurus. I think the Dilophosaurus was a pretty poorly done figure. But outside of that, every other one of these Epic Attack figures so far have been pretty cool, and this is, again, no exception. The Ford Explorer is really nicely done. It is a little bit different, again, from the first version of the Ford Explorer, which is nice to have on top of a different action feature, a little bit of a paint variation to it, which is very cool to have that going on. You can also see, again, that it's very nicely done, very highly detailed, and just generally sports that gorgeous coloration that you like to see on the Ford Explorer, just a little bit different from the first version. But we have, on top of an incredibly nice looking paint application and very highly detailed sculpt, the action feature of you being able to kind of crash and again crush down the Ford Explorer is just super cool, and definitely a really cool piece to add to your collection if you are into creating, you know, dinosaur toy photography, or just generally having a really nice display. Because you could, of course, have it crushed down and have the T-Rex on it or something along those lines. It could definitely be a really nice piece as far as, again, display options go. The Velociraptor as well is pretty cool. Nice to have an Epic Attack version of the JP1 Velociraptor, the Jurassic Park Raptor. We've got some nice paint application, and I think they replicated, as far as toy form goes, the JP Raptor pretty nicely. And again, of course, we have the nice articulation as well as the very cool action feature that you usually have for Epic Attack figures, which I am a big fan of. So again, two really cool figures, an absolutely awesome set together, and definitely another set that I absolutely recommend picking up if it ever does begin to show up in the United States or wherever you might live, because so far the only two places I've heard of actually having it are Mexico and Japan. I haven't heard of anyone else having these so far, so they're a little bit tricky as far as getting a hold of them, but if you can find them, absolutely worth the purchase. So one last huge shout out and a thank you to my good buddy Rod's Randomware for helping me to acquire these. And again, if you can find them, make sure you pick them up, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.